Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here, CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm proud to welcome back Greg Garrison. Greg and I had a conversation about his first book probably a couple of months ago. Greg, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me obviously on LinkedIn, Greg H. Garrison, Gregory H. Garrison, and on my website, gregonleadership.com.
So, Greg, you haven't written just one book. You've written two books.
Exactly.
So you've got where's it? Book one, Finding Your Leadership, which is a great book about leadership styles and what you need to know about leadership. Whereas book two, which we're going to discuss today, is about developing your leadership style, which is about how to actually apply those. Now, some people would say that you're being very greedy in writing two books. Why have you come up with two books?
Well, very quickly, it was one book, but turned out to be 650 pages. And then I talked with my publisher, and I looked at it and really said, okay, there's a real logical distinction between the two topics. First book is the theory of leadership, the psychology, the philosophy, the thought leadership, really an overarching understanding of what is the leadership field. But then, of course, at the end of the day, you've got to execute and you've got to deliver. And so I took book two and wrote book two with the intention of being really a field guide or a playbook. And this is where I get into all of the tools, the technologies, the methods, the processes, and the case studies. So in the trenches, how does it really work? And what have we learned and what works in the real world? And so it's really about all the practical aspects of leadership. So on the one hand, the theory, the second hand, what does it really mean and how do you do it?
And what you've done also is you've sprinkled your own experience across the top of that. Working in organizations like TUI and American Express and stuff like that. So it's not all theory, there's a practical element as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important. It's my life, it's been my career, but interestingly enough, I've had the opportunity to work in, of course, the US and Hong Kong, Singapore, London, Spain, and so on. And in many different roles, CEO, COO, CIO, CTO, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that diversity relates specifically to our first topic, and that's innovation. And the ability to look at different aspects of problems, interject different experience from your career and so on. And I think all of that means that it's been a good opportunity for me over the years in many different jobs to reinvent myself. And in that process, I was constantly researching, constantly studying, and so on. So the books really are not just my own experience in the field, but my own experience as I accessed and took advantage of leadership literature over the years. So some people have said, oh, these are academic books. And well, there is an academic aspect to the books, and I think that's very important. It's grounded in academia over the years. And I think what I've tried to do is write the books that I wished I'd always had.
Yeah.
And I put together this compilation, and I think I personally believe it's a very strong compilation, probably the most significant compilation of leadership literature since Drucker in the 80s and Bennis in the 90s. So it's really the book I wanted to have, and I'm providing that to my readership.
You also, before we dive in and we talk about the second book, you also talk about some of the things where you made mistakes. And I think it's really good for you to some people write books where they say, I was amazing. But you talk about one situation where you went and presented at a board and you said, you basically described what the internet was, which completely would have cannibalized their business. And they basically threw you out.
Yeah. Well, I was presenting the new direction. I was actually presenting a new trading system, which we had built back in the 90s on the internet. and we'll come on to this, but also using a metaphor of for trading systems from fighter pilots and heads-up displays and so on. So as I was presenting this, I got overexcited and said, okay, this is the way of the future. This is not only the way to kill our competition, but this is to kill off the old company. Whereupon, of course, in this enthusiasm, talking about reinventing ourselves, what I hadn't recognized is, of course, the board members in the rooms are the one that had developed the original system. And so this, as I look back, and Cotter and Rosabeth Moss Cantor and so on, as I look back, I can see what happened is I did have a new idea and a better approach, and it was the way forward. And that was proven subsequently years later. But at the time, I'd not done appropriate stakeholder alignment. And this is where in the book, I tried to show what's worked and what hasn't. And overall, I was very successful. But I need to point out, to make sure people don't fall into the same traps, point out some of the things where I've learned painful but important lessons.
So let's dig in and start talking about creativity and innovation. So tell us about the Medici effect and what it means in today's organizational context.
Yeah, the Medicis, it's an interesting story, and I've got a fairly comprehensive story in the book. The Medicis were a very powerful banking and textile family in Florence in the 14th and 15th centuries. And at that time, with their influence and their vast wealth, they were patrons for the arts, sciences, and humanities. And they they saw some of the things that were going on and some of the artists and sculptors and so on. And they brought these people together and actually provided food, lodging, and commissions for these people. Michelangelo, Donatello, Machiavelli, Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo. They brought these people together. And what happened, they wanted to support them in their own domains. But in bringing these people together, all of a sudden, all these people working together, Michelangelo was talking to the physicians, and this helped him understand profoundly the human anatomy. And Leonardo da Vinci was talking to mathematicians and scientists and so on. And so what happened was there began to be a blending of the different domains, blending of the experience. And it was the white space between these different domains, or the intersection between those domains, that began to create new fields and new opportunities and new innovations and new products and so on. And this is a critical thing, I think, I know in business. It was vital in my innovation labs, to where what you really need, if you just hire people like yourself, what do you end up with? You end up with groupthink.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, if you then begin to look at bringing in people that are different from you, obviously all intelligent people, but people that are culturally, ethnically, gender-wise, and experience-wise, not just people from your own area in innovation, but marketing people and technical people. You bring these people together, and this creates a boiling cauldron of creativity. And there were numerous occasions where, in bringing, and I hired people, neurodivergent people and people from many different walks of life. And there were times when this allowed us to create products that were not only customer friendly, but also technologically feasible. And so this really sparked creativity and sparked innovation. And we'll talk about the difference between creativity and innovation, really, which is...
I was going to say, what's the difference between creativity and innovation?
Well, lots of people would say creativity is the aha moment, the epiphany, the inspiration, and so on. And you get that when you're shaving or cooking or driving or in the shower or whatever. So it's these inspirations in the corporate context, in the innovation labs, for example, I was just describing, where all of a sudden you have a spark, an inspiration, an idea. Well, that's the spark, but you also need the engine. And so the creativity is the idea, the invention, and innovation is the commercialization and the execution and the delivery of that to create commercial value. So I think it's a very important difference.
One of the things you talk about in the book is about open innovation, and the trade-off between aggressive innovation and product development, and the associated risks of intellectual property leakage. Talk to us about that, because I think this is really critical, isn't it? In, if we're going to pick up on AI, and we need to innovate as businesses, don't we?
We do. I mean, it is, every leader is either themselves has to be a creative spirit, or they need to manage and support and inspire leadership within their teams. And you don't have to always be the innovative genius, but you've got to foster that and create that and mentor that and support that in your teams. Open innovation, really, good catch. It comes right on the back of the idea of the Medici effect. And that open innovation is the idea that, and this was really Henry Chesfield from Berkeley came up with this idea. Nobody in any company has a monopoly on ideas, a monopoly on innovation. So to the extent that you can broaden your horizon, whether it's into academia, whether it's into partners, customers, suppliers, and so on, extend the opportunity for creative energies and looking out for new ideas, new products, new services, and so on. That's critical, but you've also got to be careful in that, particularly working with suppliers and partners, make sure that you don't give away too much. You've got to have good NDAs in place. You've got to have good patents, depending on which side of the Atlantic, and also commercial agreements. But the other important thing is, I remember when I was running mobiles for AOL back in the day, and I said, let's make sure we belong to all of the industry forums, because it's easier to create standards than it is to comply to standards. But also, let's disclose what we're doing to get other people to help us, because we want them, I don't mind if they're trying to, catch up to us and get to where we are, because we're just going to be another step ahead.
Yeah.
And so the important thing is understand where the boundary lies between what is proprietary and what is open source, and what can be disclosed to your partners and suppliers.
So you talk a lot in the book about leading people and teams. Give us your view on what the difference is between what leadership and management is.
Well, leadership is really about setting a vision, and a vision with a purpose, if you will, because a vision by itself, you've got to bring your team along with you. So you've got to define a purpose, and that purpose is building a bridge between the corporate vision, your product, your idea, and some innate drive or desire or motivation within themselves. So that's leadership. Leadership is setting a vision, it's mentoring, it's guiding, it's setting direction. But then you've got to execute. And this is critical for any leader, recognizing that you not only have to be a leader, but you've got to be a manager. You've got to execute. You've got to deliver. We've all been in workshops where you've had a lot of great ideas, and then nothing happens. And so what you've got to make sure you do is you set up the infrastructure, you set up the people, the processes whereby you can make sure that you can bring that innovation to market. There's many different ways of doing that. There's a number of different, all the way back to Xerox PARC with the invention of the graphical user interface and the mouse and so on. That was the original famous innovation lab. There's different ways of doing that. You can have a discrete, either physical or virtual innovation lab, or you can innovate through partners. But the idea of the Holy Grail is, of course, to set up an innovation culture within the organization. And the famous one in this regard is, of course, Toyota, where everybody in Toyota understands, whether it's the CEO, the marketing manager, the product manager, the engineer, or really the cleaners. Everybody knows that part of their job in the company is to be involved in a process of continuous innovation. And when you have a culture like that, and that's the same thing we see in the digital world today. You see that with Google and others, and Meta and different organizations. The critical thing is to have a culture of innovation where everybody is striving to improve not only continuous innovation, but also game-changing innovation. And that's where this balance between creativity and innovation comes into play and creates value, making sure that you just don't have a lot of fun, creative ideas, but also you can execute to create value for the stakeholders and shareholders.
One of the things you discuss in the book is about hiring exceptional people. Of course, we want to do that, but you go on and talk about aggressive compensation.
Yeah.
And so talk to us about that.
That's really been an interesting experience for me. To hire exceptional people recognize that they have talent.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a guy came into me once, and first thing out of his mouth in the interview was, "You should hire me because I'm a genius." I said, "Great, we need smart people here." But the thing is, you've got to compensate these people. And the thing is, if you don't want to play this game of, "Oh, come on in, and we'll start you out low, and we'll catch you up over time." That's a dead end, because these people know their value, and then they grow, and the next thing you know, they've moved on. I don't think I ever actually, there was one person, but in my 3 different innovation initiatives, I never lost a single person, with the exception of a person that went off and started his own company, and good on him. And the reason being is, one, creating a good culture, but also compensating them well. And we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Herzberg's motivational theories and these things in the books. But the thing is that an exceptional person will always prove their value, and not only with continuous innovation, but with breakthrough innovation, breakthrough ideas and contributions. And if you compensate them well, they will have the motivation and the drive to return that, reciprocate to you, and be a part of the team, and follow your lead, and follow your vision, and help co-create that vision. So I've always erred on the side of high compensation. And in actual fact, I've been able to justify that to my management vis-a-vis the output that we achieved. So don't shortchange them. Start out, if you're going to hire people, believe in them from the outset. Offer them more than the benchmark in the marketplace. That's what they feel they're worth, and frankly, they are. And so be really aggressive on your compensation for good people. But that's the key: to get good people. And
so we've got 3 minutes or so left. To talk to us about the criticality of team composition. Sorry, the makeup of the team.
Really important. So not only just smart people and creative people, but you've got to have a balance of people. And you're in the UK, the Belbin model, and there's different models, the Myers-Briggs we talked about. Understanding that you really need to have creative types, but you not only need to have the shapers and the chairman and the communicators, but you need the completer finishers and the executors and the resource investigators and the people that execute. So, and that balance is critical. And very quickly, you will find, Tuckman talks about forming, storming, norming, performing. You'll find initially you bring these people together and they're all excited. Next thing you know is, there's a little bit of conflict. People don't understand how to work together. You've got to expect that and manage that, and make sure you can move these people forward to where they begin to norm. And then if they begin to norm, they can begin to perform. But you've got to have that composition of people between the idea people and the execution people. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
And give us a quick 1 minute on your incident file for management and performance reviews.
Oh, excellent. This is a great idea I learned years ago. Regardless of how many people you direct reports, have a file for each person and a file for the team. And throughout the year, anytime anything significant happens, good or bad, but hopefully good, just grab a Post-it note or a scrap of paper or anything. Just make a quick note, date it, put their name, stick it in their file. At the end of the year, all of a sudden, when you've got to do their performance appraisal, you can pull out this file, and here you just chronicle all of these different Post-it notes and scraps of paper, and say, this is what they did. And this is critical, not only to have documentation throughout the year for their performance, but also when you want to go in, and give them a raise and justify an out of pattern raise, or even when you want to give them a promotion. If you can go in with the evidence from your incident file. That's the ammunition you need to manage them and also to manage them upwards.
Greg, thank you so much for coming on again and talking about your second book, Developing Your Leadership Style. If I wanted to get the books, where can I get them from?
Well, you can get them on Amazon. You can get them in Waterstones. You can get them in, most major bookstores. You might have to order them, but certainly Amazon anywhere in the world.
And remind us what book one and the difference between book one and book two.
Book one is the theory, the philosophy, the psychology, the thought leadership. Book two is the methods, processes, techniques, tools, successes, failures, case studies. So together they provide you really a playbook of management all in one location.
And I've read them both, Greg, and they're fantastic books.
Okay.
As you said, if you're thinking about moving into leadership or your first steps into leadership, they're I enjoyed them, and I've been in leadership a long time. But it was in my case, it was more of a reminder. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Whereas certainly if you're thinking about leadership or your first steps, they're really good background and foundation. I mean, it's like a mini MBA, really, isn't it?
I'm talking to a number of universities as well and putting them into the MBA program. And I think that's important, and certainly for people starting out in their career. Funnily enough, 4 people who've come back to me are C-level people who've said they've really enjoyed it and got value out of that. And that was a surprise to me.
Yeah.
So both, I think really anywhere in your leadership career, hopefully you'll be able to find some value.
Well, as you know, every day is a school day, Greg. And even if you've been in leadership for a long time, you always go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or you get I never thought about the Post-it notes and put it in the file and stuff like that. Yeah.
Or you remembered something you forgot.
Yeah. So you always learn something. So remind us where we can get hold of you, Greg.
LinkedIn, that's probably the best place, and gregonleadership.com.
Thanks, Greg.